senior political analyst Mark Preston is here, and Emily Tisch Sussman, former staffer for the 2008 Obama campaign and Democratic strategist. So, Mark, I mean, remarkable that Warren went on the record confirming this last night. Obviously, they're going to be asked about it on the debate stage tonight. I mean, are they going to point at each other and say, you're lying?
You know, this is going to be an interesting dynamic because we haven't seen Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren attack one another. That's what that whole meeting was about, where this discussion took place. Let's have a non-aggression pact. Let's not try to tear down the ideals that we're pushing for the progressive part of the party. But again, tonight, there's so much at stake. They're going to be on stage. This will be the last time we'll see all 6 of these candidates together on stage, and specifically Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. 24 hours ago, she comes out and acknowledges a conversation that took place that Bernie Sanders' campaign seems to say that she is now misinterpreted. So tonight will be interesting to see if that non-aggression pact that they talked about at that meeting stays in place, or they use this debate stage to attack one another.
Emily, let's look at the most recent polling. Monmouth had a poll out yesterday that showed the lay of the land just prior to Iowa, and it shows Joe Biden with a lead, I believe the biggest one he's shown so far in Iowa. And this is key, is it not? Because, you know, the conventional wisdom for some time has been that Biden would be weak in Iowa and New Hampshire, but then recover in South Carolina, where he has tremendous African-American support. A lot of ifs here, but what does that tell you about who has the momentum leading into tonight and to the caucus?
Well, I think that the momentum for tonight means a lot for the caucus. Caucus goers in Iowa are very much paying attention to these debates, and the fact that this is on their home turf, on their issues, is really going to be very important for a lot of them who are deciding. I think for a lot of us who are looking at this race, it's kind of easy for us to say that voters are breaking down between camps of a progressive Sanders-Warren camp versus a Biden-Buttigieg camp on the more moderate side, but that's actually really not the reality of especially the caucus goers on the ground in Iowa. They get so much contact with voters, with candidates. They really get to have the conversations they want to have. So some voters are deciding between Biden and Sanders, and I think it shows us just how many undecideds are left and how the race is still very much in flux.
Emily, can I just ask you about the lack of diversity on the stage tonight? Because you have all white candidates, 2 women, all white candidates who are going to be up there. This is the 7th debate. If you compare this to the 7th debate back in 2016, on the Republican side, there were 3 minority candidates. What should this tell people about this party that continually touts inclusivity and diversity?
It's definitely not thrilling to a lot of Democrats that we started with the most diverse field in history, and it's not turned out that way as the field is winnowing. And a lot of people want to see a vice presidential nominee, with whoever the nominee ends up being, that would bring more diversity to the field. I think it does put extra pressure on the candidates tonight to be able to speak in a very authentic way to the particular struggles of African Americans and of minority voters and just citizens in the country.
Mark, foreign policy is going to play a more central role tonight than we've seen in previous debates. And of course, at a time when foreign policy is front and center, you have the killing of Soleimani, rising tensions. Just a few days ago, we were talking about the possibility of war between the U.S. and Iran here. Who has the advantage on that topic on the stage?
You know, interesting you lay that out the way you did, Jim, because there's been so much talk about domestic policy and the differences that these candidates may have over health care or some of the other things, Social Security, in dealing with the deficit. But it is foreign policy right now that is front and center, and there are very divergent views on that stage right now. To say who has the advantage, it's very much unclear, because if you are a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren type of Democrat, more to the liberal side, you want troops out of the Middle East. You want to see America come back, pull back from its engagement overseas. If you are a Joe Biden type of Democrat, perhaps Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, you are the type of Democrat, Jim, as you know, that understands that you want to try to keep some kind of military force in the Middle East to keep stability there. So that you would have to expect will play out tonight as well. Yeah. We'll see who brings it up, but I would think that Joe Biden is somebody who will probably try to tout at least his experience he had working with Barack Obama, as well as his years in the Senate.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would have overlap between some of the more progressive Democratic candidates and President Trump, right? This kind of endless wars line.
Yep, and then as you said, Mark, you have the veteran, right? The one who has served in Pete Buttigieg. Emily, look, 3 of those who will be on the stage tonight, half, will be going back to be jurors, like at the end of this week or next week or this weekend, who knows, right? So the issue of impartiality, they take an oath as jurors to be impartial. But you have Warren, for example, who said back in October that she would vote to convict the president, right? So how do they deal with the impeachment questions tonight? Do they try to be impartial on the stage?
I think they've pretty much all laid their ground. I think they had all kind of leveled out thresholds of what they think the president would have to hit to be impeached, and in fact was in the House and met all of those thresholds. So I don't think that should be extra surprising on their stances tonight in the debate. I think the issue of how much time they're going to have to dedicate in the Senate is going to be a very real factor for a lot of these people over the next couple of weeks as the impeachment trial is playing out in the Senate. They are not going to be on the ground in Iowa. They are not going to be having those conversations. And that makes a very real difference as you're going in, particularly with almost 40% of the field still undecided. But also, the Iowa caucus is nuts. It's crazy. It's not just like voters go in and vote. Everyone stands in a room and tries to convince their neighbors.
Which side of the high school gym are you going to go to?
Exactly. They try to bring their neighbors over on their side with them. And so the amount of intensity that caucus goers feel about a candidate, and if they can point to one conversation they had, one hand they shook, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's a remarkable event to witness the caucuses. It's democracy in action. Mark Preston, Emily Tisch Sussman, thanks to both of you. The CNN